health facilities.
We do have 3 motions, and one of the motions, Her Honor is expected to move a motion. Thanks His Excellency Mr. Evariste Ndayishimiye's special address that the House places on record. It's thanks to His Excellency Mr. Evariste Ndayishimiye, President of the Republic of Burundi, on the occasion of his special address to the House. Earlier on, the House did witness the address by the Burundian President. If you do remember well, that was yesterday, Standing Order 26.1 and 55 of the National Assembly of Zambia, Standing Orders 2024 was suspended to enable His Excellency Mr. Evariste Ndayishimiye, President of the Republic of Burundi, to deliver a speech, special address to the House today, Friday, 2nd August 2024, which he did, and members of Parliament are expected to debate the address.
Another motion is expected to be moved by Siavonga Member of Parliament, Mr. Dalius Molonda, urging the House to adopt the report of the Committee on Local Government Accounts on the report of the Auditor General on the accounts of local authorities for the financial year ended 31st December 2022 for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 1st August 2024.
So bells are still ringing, and members of Parliament are slowly getting back to the chamber from the health break that they had. Once the quorum is constituted, business resumes. It is a requirement that 1/3 of the total number of members of Parliament be present for any business to be considered on the floor of the House. So business cannot resume now until that number is attained. We have another report that is coming from Mr. Romeo Kangombe Matimba.
Yes, President, he will be urging the House to adopt the report of the Committee on Energy, Water Development and Tourism on the special audit report of the Auditor General on the procurement and management of petroleum products from 1st January 2019 to 31st December 2022 for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 1st August 2024.
And after adjournment, we'll be able to share with you some of the key points that were raised in the President of the Republic of Burundi in his address to Parliament. He did bring quite a number of issues in that address. So we'll be able to share with you some of the key points that the Republican President talked about. So in the next few minutes or seconds, once the quorum is attained, business will resume. So members of Parliament, together with the second Deputy Speaker, just waiting for the attainment of the quorum for business to resume. So Matimba and I will be on hand to give you live commentaries. Keep watching Parliament Television. Business resumes in a few seconds' time.
When business was suspended, the House had just finished considering the Vice President's question time. We now move to the next item on the order paper. Question for oral answer. Question for oral answer, understanding orders 82. The Honorable Member for Kafue.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's question number, what's the question? Question number 413.
The Honorable Minister of Lands and Natural Resources.
Thank you.
I think, let me get the House. We have a lot of business to transact today before the close of business day. So ensure that let's minimize on point of orders. May the Honorable Minister proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there's a question received from an Honourable Member of Parliament for Kafue, in which she is asking the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources the following question. A, why the land agency for Kafue Town Council was revoked. That's Kafue Municipal Council was revoked. No, sorry, Town Council was revoked. B, when the land agency will be reinstated. Our response is as follows. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, a preliminary inquiry shows that Kafue Town Council was offering land in the Lusaka South National Park number 20, belonging to the Department of National Parks and Wildlife under the Ministry of Tourism, in contravention of the provisions of the Administrative Circular number 1 of 1985, which authorizes councils to participate in the administration of land as agents of the Ministry of Lands and on behalf of the Commission of Lands. Mr. Speaker, the preliminary investigations further reviewed the site plan in relation to the land that was being offered to members of the public. And these were, of course, unsuspecting members of the public, and this was neither approved nor numbered by the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources through the Office of the Surveyor General. Therefore, the site number Kafue/LN 44617/1-207 that is being used to offer the land in question was not sanctioned by the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, owing to the fact that the land is not available for allocation as it falls within Forest 20, which is a protected area. Mr. Speaker, it is against this background that my office evoked Section 7 of the Administrative Circular number 1 of 1985 to suspend the agency. Regarding question B, Mr. Speaker, the issue of the Kafue Land Agency being revoked is still under investigation in consultation with other stakeholders. In the meantime, Kafue Town Council Land Agency shall remain revoked. I thank you.
Supplementary questions? The Honourable Member for Kwacha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity given to ask a follow-up question to the Honourable Minister of Lands. Honourable Minister, thank you for your response to the question that was posed by the Honourable Member from Kafue. Now, Honourable Minister, if you look at Kafue, it is one town that is very, very important and strategically positioned to support Lusaka in various areas. Looking at your response, where you made some preliminary findings, I would like to find out what action you will be able to undertake going by the findings that you have established, so that we can avoid further suspensions of other towns, not only Kafue, but other towns that may engage in such activities that are unwarranted. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Lands and Natural Resources.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honorable, for your follow-up question, very important question. My response to that question, Mr. Speaker, is that, first of all, councils must understand that they are appointed agents of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. And upon that appointment, they are expected to work within the regulations that have been given to them by the principal, being the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. There is a circular that was issued, Circular number 1 of 1985, that guides all local authorities, and that is a circular upon which they are expected to administer the land in question. And when and if they fail to adhere by those regulations, the Minister of Lands reserves the right to cancel, or rather to revoke their appointment as agents. And when that happens, the Commissioner of Lands becomes the council in terms of administration of that land. So my advice to all local authorities and members of Parliament is to help government to ensure that the local authorities stay in line with the regulations which they're supposed to follow. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kawata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Honourable Minister, the statement that you've given actually shows that there was fraudulent activity, there was actually forgery, and a lot of wrong things actually were done. I wanted to find out whether the people that were involved have actually been placed on suspicion, because surely this is a criminal. You have the site plan which they're using, and you've got people who have actually probably sold to unsuspected Zambians. So are we going to see any one of these who are actually involved to be placed on suspicion as investigations are going on?
The Honourable Minister of Lands and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honourable, for your follow-up question. First of all, the Ministry of Lands is not the owners of that piece of land that has been encroached upon. The owners of that land are Ministry of Tourism. So the Ministry of Tourism, like any other entity, be it individual organization, that is allocated a piece of land for use, must try to always ensure that they secure their land against encroachments. Secondly, the other people that rather have been inconvenienced are the unsuspecting citizens or residents of Kafue and other parts of the country who unknowingly paid a lot of money, I'm told, to the council or to individuals. We're not sure who collected the money, but those are issues for investigations, which are under investigations. And it is also upon those people, those individuals, to report the matter to the council or to the police or to the Minister of Lands to show proof that they paid money to the council. And we also have to investigate whether that money really went into the coffers of the council or whether it went to individuals. All those are issues that are still under investigations. And once we have that full information, as Ministry of Lands, we will move to take further action. For now, the powers that we have is to take back the power to administer land from any erring council. So we have taken that action. And as it stands, Kafue Council is not the administrator for the land in Kafue, but the Ministry of Lands under the Office of the Commissioner of Lands. So, my advice to those who paid money is to take action, because they didn't know. And also the Ministry of Tourism that has been affected, And also the MFAs, Minister of Commerce, should make sure that they secure their land. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Sinazongwe.
Most grateful, Mr. Speaker, and Honourable Minister, I would like to thank you on your responses. Now, what I wanted to find out, Honourable Minister, is because the information that we are getting on the ground is that some people have even constructed a lot of houses there, and money has been spent, actually. Big houses have been constructed. Now, I wanted to find out the government disposition, especially on those who have gone as far as constructing the accommodation. I submit the thing.
The Honourable Minister of Lands and Natural Resources.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honourable, for your follow-up question, a very important question. I want to state that from the last time when there was an inspection done, there were no big houses that were constructed. Now, that is news to us in the Ministry of Lands that new houses have been, big mansions have been constructed. I also want to believe that before you construct a house, you have to apply for planning permission, building plans, and there has to be various levels of inspections. Even when you finish the foundation, the council has to be called. And I hope those builders can show proof that even their drawings have been approved by the local authority, which in this regard will be Kafue Council. In the absence of those, they may face demolition. That's what normally happens. And it is not the job of Minister of Lands to demolish anybody's piece of land. It is up to the person who has been encroached upon. So if you encroach on my land as Sylvia Masevo, I'll take up the matter to the police, to the courts, and when I get a court order, I'll get the relevant government wings to demolish your property so that I can have my piece of land back. And so, Minister of Tourism, it is up to them to take the necessary steps. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kasenengwe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My question was almost taken over by the question from Honourable Member for Kabwata, but referring to the Minister's response, I need to ask a follow-up question. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Lands said the onus lies heavily upon the owner of the property or the land to secure it, to avoid encroachment, meaning that they should put a wall fence, in short, to avoid people encroaching into that land. What I did not hear the minister say is what punitive measures they are going to take to those who were allocating land illegally. To me, Mr. Speaker, it appeared as though the minister, unless I did not hear her very well, she was okay with the people who allocated the land, but placed the responsibility heavily on people who own the land to secure it, to avoid encroachment. Is that your position, Honourable Minister, that those who buy land should secure it, failure to which, if it is enclosed, they do not take the responsibility? Maybe I did not hear her properly, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Minister of Lands and Natural Resources.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honourable, for your follow-up questions. When the Minister of Lands issues you the title, you become the owner of that land. How you secure it is up to yourself. Others put wall fence, others make sure they build a house, and once they build a house, they do not expect anybody to come and encroach on that land. And if you find that there's an encroacher on your piece of land, it's not the Minister of Lands. It's for you to do what? To get to the police and report that you have an encroacher. If you do not know your beacons are, yes, you can come to the Minister of Lands for the Minister of Lands to help you identify the beacons. And you can do that even through the local authority. The local authority should be able to assist you that these are your beacons A, B, C, D. And therefore, once you establish that somebody is encroaching, it is now your duty to go and report the matter to the police, because that becomes a criminal offense. It is not the job of Minister of Lands. Mr. Speaker, indeed, there is a question that was asked by Kabwata which I may have bypassed, and let me respond to it if I recollect correctly on the question. I think he did indicate that there was some criminal acts that may have happened in the process. And I think the Member of Parliament for Kabwata did indicate that, in fact, there may have been some signatures that may have been forged from Ministry of Lands. Indeed, that amounts to a criminal offense, and that's why I said the matter is still under investigations, and once the investigations are over, we should be able to take appropriate action depending on what those investigations will reveal. And so anything to do with Ministry of Lands, it is our responsibility to ensure that we secure our stamps, our documents. That is the job of Lands. And where we slip up, we shall stiffen our security systems at the Ministry of Lands. Thank you. But let me also add, citizens should not take the law into their hands, because the President has made it clear to all of us, when you do anything wrong, you're on your own. So even citizens will be on their own. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kafue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I'm listening attentively to the Minister, but still the question that lingers on my mind around investigations is that do we have an indication of when these investigations would be concluded, or at least action taken based on the findings already that have been made? Because the worry is that as it takes long, evidence is being destroyed, and apparently also our people don't seem to understand this, what this revocation means, because as I raised the issue earlier in the week, the illegal allocations have continued. Surely based on that, can't some action be taken to deter the continued engagement into these very highly questionable land transactions? I thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Lands and Natural Resources.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honourable Member of Parliament for Kafue, for your important follow-up question. First of all, Mr. Speaker, I want to inform the Honourable Member of Parliament that, in fact, the day she pushed this question, I personally took up the matter, and we have since spoken to the town clerk, the council secretary for Kafue, to ensure that he responds to a letter or to a conversation that him and the former Minister of Lands had, wherein he was asked to provide the Ministry of Lands information on all those the council falsely allocated land to. Secondly, the monies that were paid must be accounted for, and proof must be shown to us that the money did go into the account, and then we can pick it up from there. Because again, we have to protect unsuspecting citizens as government. That citizens should not pay money based on fake things, and people should expect that citizens should be the ones to lose all the time. So I can assure the Member of Parliament that this matter is receiving very, very urgent actions, and we've given the Council up to next week, Tuesday, and we hope that before it's too late, we can take the necessary further actions. And I also want to believe that the Minister of Home Affairs is also in the House and is listening, and all the relevant organs of government concerned are listening, and I can assure you appropriate action will be taken. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Chasef.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to ask a follow-up question. Honourable Minister of Lands, the issue of Kafue over land management is not a new one. Mr. Speaker, some of us who have worked in the local authorities, I was the president of the council workers. Kafue is one of the councils that has been leading in these illegal or allocations of land. Management, government has been transferring people at the top of management, but these issues keep on coming. Is the government, Honorable Minister, considering complete overhaul of staff at Kafue Council so that we have officers who may have fear for public management of land, so that the bad name that Kafue is earning on land management can be ended? Is the government considering overhauling the council in Kafue so that we have new officers who can be managing these affairs very well? Thank you so much.
I don't know whether the Minister of Lands is able to answer that question because it's a different ministry. I don't know if you can shed light on what he has asked.
I'll try, Mr. Speaker, because we are one government, and only to say that, in fact, the Ministry of Local Government has in the past made a number of changes in the administrators, the officers at the Kafue Council. In fact, even the town clerk, the council secretary, is new. He hasn't been there for a long time. So those steps have been taken. And I also know that the Ministry of Lands has been engaging with local authorities by way of, workshops and meetings to try and get them to appreciate what their real role is in the administration of land. And we can only continue doing that and hope that with time, Kafue can get better. I also know that the Minister of Local Government reserves the right to also suspend councils. So there are all these avenues which can be applied, and I think that the government working together in a multi-sectorial way are looking at how best Kafue can be assisted, because at the end of the day it is the ordinary people that suffer. But let me say that the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources under the Department of the Commission of Lands is administering land issues for Kafue. So there is no vacuum, and anybody in Kafue with any issue concerning land, they are free to contact the Office of the Commission of Lands. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Shwangandu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I think mine is a rider on the question posed by the MP for Joseph. Kafue District Council has been having these challenges, problems of land administration for some time now, and it's not the first time the delegated authority to administer land is being suspended. I do recall when I served in the Ministry of Local Government, they had to face the same challenge. Honourable Minister, what are you permanently doing? Because if you hear the Honourable MP, several occasions, it's this issue of illegal land allocations, and she's now even being accused of being a demolisher of properties. I don't know what authority you would use to demolish those. So what are you going to do permanently in order to ensure that Kafue District Council adheres to the guidelines in performing their delegated functions of the Minister of Lands? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Lands and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honourable, for a follow-up question. I think first of all is to appreciate that districts like Chilanga, Kafue, Chongwe, they've become very vulnerable because of their proximity to Lusaka City, and also taking into account that Lusaka City does not have any more land to allocate. So there's a lot of pressure on these surrounding districts. And we also know where we are coming from. The levels of lawlessness were very high. And as the Honorable MP who has been there before has indicated, that Kafue was one of those councils that, frankly speaking, were not following the guidelines of administering land. But the facts are that, you know, issues of indiscipline, corruption cannot die in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or even 5 years. It will take time. It will in fact take both the right and the left speaking one language when the story of corruption comes. When the story of corruption comes and we politicize it, we will never finish corruption in this country. I've always stated, it's only in Zambia where corrupt people are glorified and those that fight corruption are fought. And so the challenge of Kafue is really an issue of abuse of office, corruption. That's what it is. And until we can all work together as Zambians to clean this country, if we are going to expect President HH is going to clean corruption like one person, then we might as well forget the fight. It requires all of us to work together and to be honest with each other. If I become corrupt and you are sure I'm corrupt, you report me and the law takes its course. When the next person is not corrupt, you say that next person is not corrupt. Even if they belong to different parties, you stand by them. But the minute a country begins to politicize corruption, it is a recipe for failure. So, the problem of Kafue, like many other councils, it's not just Kafue. Maybe Kafue has overdone it. This problem is in many councils today. We have problems, Mr. Speaker, in Chongwe. And sometimes I just say, God help this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's make progress. Next question. The Honorable Member for Shuangandu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question 414.
The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Kampiongo would like to find out from the Ministry, A, whether the medicines that were intercepted by the police in the Copperbelt province en route to the Democratic Republic of Congo, as reported in the Newsdiggers newspaper of 31st July 2024, belong to the government. In B, if so, where the medicines came from. And in C, you would like to find out what measures are being taken to curb the pilferage of medicines from government health facilities. Our response, Mr. Speaker. May I begin by mentioning that this matter is under investigations by the law enforcement agencies. Mr. Speaker, the medicines intercepted by the police on the Copperbelt en route to Congo DR, as reported in the Newsdiggers newspaper on the 31st July 2024, belong to the government of Zambia. This is based on the GRZ labeling on the products as well as batch numbers, which are unique identification codes assigned to a specific group of products, as confirmed by the Zambia Medicines and Medical Supplies Agencies called ZAMPSA. In B, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry and the law enforcement agencies are yet to ascertain exactly where the consignment came from, and as I have mentioned, this matter is under investigations. However, preliminary investigations have revealed the following facts. The drugs were transported to Kitwe from Lusaka by public transportation and then transferred to a Hino truck which was intercepted in Chilavombe by the police. The exact facilities from which these drugs originated is still being determined as investigations are ongoing. Further details will be provided when the investigations are concluded. In C, Mr. Speaker, the following are the measures being taken to curb the preference of medicines from the public health facilities. Preventative measures. A. Improved inventory management. The Ministry, working with other cooperating partners, is making available all inventory management tools to ensure tracking and tracing of transactions, as well as movement of medicines and medical supplies. B. Enhanced security of medicines and medical supplies. The Ministry has directed all provincial health secure and install CCTV all high and establish provincial joint task force teams against theft of medicines. C. Enhance community engagement. The Ministry of Health and the partners are sensitizing various communities to raise awareness about the importance of preserving our healthcare resources. This is being done through the education and community outreach programs so as to foster the sense of ownership and responsibility among the public. D. Amplifying whistleblowing activities with regard to sensitization of bus owners, bus stations, police checkpoints, health workers, and the general public. E. Strengthened staff training and awareness on the consequences of theft of medicines and medical supplies in our public health facilities. 2. In 2A, the Ministry, with the stakeholders, has established a medicine data surveillance center unit referred to as Control Tower to track regularly the utilization and use of medicine patents. B. Strengthen collaboration with law enforcement agencies. The Ministry of Health will strengthen work relationship with all law enforcement agencies to investigate all suspected cases and related to theft of medicines and medical supplies. 2. Established the Joint Task Force Against Theft of Essential Medicines and Medical Supplies, whose mandate is to safeguard the public health chain. B. In 3, government through the Joint National Task Force Against Theft of Medicines and Medical Supplies has facilitated a total of 154 arrests with 64 convictions, of which 26 are health workers since 2022. C. The Ministry has taken a step to write to Health Professional Council of Zambia to help those convicted by deregistering so that they should not ever practice and deprive the public of much needed life-saving medicines. Mr. Speaker, may I take this opportunity to warn all those who intend to steal public medicines that it is not easy to conceal or steal public medicines, as they are labeled GRZ and the batch numbers will be used to trace and track the medicines. In addition, offenders will face stiff punishment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Member for Mansa Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Minister, welcome to the Ministry of Health. Honourable Minister, you've described measures to curb theft of medicines in the public sector. And one of the key ones is on the National Task Force to curb theft of medicines. It's a multidisciplinary task force. How much investment are you putting in as Minister of Health, being the key stakeholder, to strengthen operations of this task force so that it is beyond rhetoric? The essence of a robust supply chain is to ensure availability of medicines at the last mile. This task force would be able to ensure that medicines are safe from procurement, from storage, in transit, and up to the last mile. How much investment are we seeing in this, as we haven't seen a cost center, particularly to support the National Task Force on Theft of Medicines? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Master Central MP, and thank you very much for this question. Looking at the investment of the drugs bought by the government of Zambia and the donors is quite heavy. And also the investment into it to protect it should be quite heavy. It's a good question, but what I would say is there's been total failure in terms of internal controls. Total failure in internal controls. I don't know what has been happening to internal auditors. The warehouse supervision, name it. So we shall depend on people like you who have been there before with experience to help us come up with a tight security so that medicines reach the last step or last mile, as you put it. Zambians have been starved of medicines. Previously, there was no medicines on the shelves. Today, effort has been made. Zamsa is full. But now the medicine is finding its way outside to private hands. We shall be consulting you, sir, and my predecessor, so that we come up with measures that can protect the interest of a Zambian. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member from Kano.
He wants to call.
Honorable Minister, you do realize that government is a very complex establishment, and we can win together. And the call on Honorable Chirufya, I think, is welcome. We are prepared to support you because you have inherited a ministry that has a serious problem. And evidence is just this particular question regarding to those 2 trucks. It is very normal to hear a box of drugs being stolen, but truckloads, 2 truckloads, is quite scary, particularly that we are now failing to even manage our own procurement. You procure drugs from another country, the drugs are here, and the drugs disappear only to be discovered.
Honorable Member from Kano, this question, let me guide you. This question is quite specific.
Yes, Mr.
Yes, as such, ask questions in line to the question on the floor of the House. Let's avoid the crowding unnecessarily. So ask questions surrounding this question.
2 truckloads means that these are drugs that could have come from a specific warehousing facility. And I want to believe that by now, investigation should have led us somewhere, as the investigation pointed to which particular facility so far where these drugs could have come from, and are there any suspects that have already been picked in regards or in connection with this theft? I thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, Honorable Mpundu. And indeed, you are most welcome that we have to win together. As you know, Minister of Health deals with life. And all of us should come together and condemn these malpractices which are going on. This intention to steal what is meant for a poor person in the village. You should know that there is a cartel. There is no way. The drugs belong to Zamsa. I've already mentioned it. They came from Zamsa. There is a cartel. It's with inside and outside. They go to the bus stop, intercity, all the way up to Copperbelt and wanting themselves to go. It's a cartel, it's a chain, but for fear of jeopardizing the investigations, let's not go too much into detail. We are tracking, it will help us actually track the whole chain. You are most welcome to help us to come to the end, because we have to save lives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Mukushi South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Minister, the medicines that were
purported to have been intercepted by the police. How safe are they for people's consumption, bearing in mind that we still have some of the containers that are still that were kept for so long, 6 months? Are they part of that, or this is a separate contraband? I submit, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me start with saying they are not part of the 61 containers. That's very clear. 61 containers we are taking stock. They are there at SAMSA. You are free to come and inspect, especially my colleagues from medical cadre, Dr. Karira, Dr. Churufia, and you are free to come and help us also investigate. It's not purported culprits are there, then police tells. Investigations are there, and they have taken the serial numbers and what have you. And for sure, if they are to go back into the shelves, Zambia is there to test them. You cannot take medicines which have already been exposed back and start administering to the people. They could have been contaminated or tampered with. Be assured that they are safe, enhanced, and all measures will be taken to protect the interest of the public. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Kankoyo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the past it was so difficult for ZAMSA to control the loss of drugs on the way because they were hiring trucks. But I saw the first task the Minister of Health did was to receive 67 vehicles from the Global Fund and World Bank, where there are 80 light trucks to go to 7 different hubs and 57 land cruisers to help with the distribution of the drugs. Now that ZAMSA has got its own transport, are we seeing a reduction on the loss of medicine during transportation? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Honorable Member of Parliament for Kankoyo. Yes, ZAMSA now has got 8 trucks from the global funding and 66 land cruisers. We thank our colleague, the Minister of Lands now, Honorable Masebo, for the effort they made with his predecessors. These are from the donors. Before, it was difficult to distribute medicines. At times, they were asking hospitals to come and collect. At times, they were playing all these sorts of games. But we have to be careful on how to manage these same trucks. Because trucks under government or quasi-government, they don't last long. But we should assure you that we have to constantly service them so that they make deliveries. Especially my office, as long as I remain there, I'll be keen to monitor how they are being used. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Lukasha.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Minister, this continuous theft of medicines from ZAMSA, as you rightly pointed out, is blameable partly on lack of effective internal controls at ZAMSA. I have in mind that ZAMSA has had contractual relationships with certain agencies that help in beefing up capacity on internal controls, such as global funds and crown agents. What I wanted to find out is what is the current relationship between ZAMSA and global agencies and also crown agencies, insofar as internal controls is concerned. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Health.
As you know, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, Member of Parliament for Lukasha. ZAMSA is an agent of the Minister of Health. The relationship that exists between Global Fund and what have you is between the Zambian government and the funders. Then ZAMSA is on behalf of the government to be procuring and distributing. The relationship is sound. And also would want also to be accountable, to be transparent with the funds that are coming in. It is ourselves, the Zambian, who have been weak to let this repose that we are showing signs that we don't care on how we spend donor money and our own money. These reports are the ones which we need to seal. This government is determined to get the culprits to book. And this arrest will help us track who the criminals are. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Shwangandu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. And we appreciate the responses coming from the Honourable Minister. And we know that you are just settling in the Minister. I want to start by commending those alert vigilant officers at Konkola checkpoint who intercepted that truck which was carrying those medicines. You can only imagine that that's just one off case which could have been detected by those alert officers, and there could be many more pilfered drugs which could be heading two different directions. Are you considering looking at the whole entire supply chain of medical supplies in order for you to ensure that the task force that you referred to are playing their role, and there is monitoring the surveillance of movement of drug and medical supplies is monitored from the source up to the time of distribution to the hubs and hubs into the medical facilities? Are you doing an evaluation of how the whole entire supply chain is performing? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Honourable Kampyongo. That's very important. You have seen how money is transported by Bank of Zambia. It's under tight security. We want to see, we shall carry out what we call SWAP. The weaknesses and the strength. Because high value, that institution. It's a lot of money. But we just left it, just to run like that. It requires serious supervision. Internal controls have to be very effective. If it means escorting those trucks with the paramilitary. First and foremost, we should congratulate the policeman, Chilabombwe. Other policemen would have just been corrupted and would have allowed the trucks to go, and we're not going to know. This policeman is commended. We say thank you. And for sure, we have to carry out an evaluation. We have to be very, very objective. All those who are not performing, they have no room to be there. We have to protect the interests of Zambians. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. Notice of motion. The Honourable Member for Siavonga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Local Government Accounts on the report of the Auditor General on the accounts of local authorities for the financial year ended 31st December 2022 for the third session of the 13th National Assembly laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 1st August 2024.
Is the motion seconded?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, it's seconded.
Seconded by the Honourable Member for Chasefu. The question is that this House adopts a report of the Committee on Local Government Accounts on the report of the Auditor General on the accounts of local government authorities for the financial year ended 31st December 2022 for the third session of the 13th National Assembly laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 30th July 2024. Any debate? The Honourable Member for Siavonga.
Mr. Speaker, in line with its terms of reference, the committee considered the aforementioned report of the Auditor General and interacted with the accounting authorities and other relevant stakeholders on the subject matter. The interaction reviewed various weaknesses in management of public funds and the operations of councils, upon which the committee has made observations and recommendations, which I'm sure the honorable members have had time to read in the report. Allow me at this point, Mr. Speaker, to highlight a few findings of the committee and its recommendations. Mr. Speaker, the committee observes with concern that councils are still grappling with a challenge of revenue correction. Coupled with this is the inability by most of the councils to make realistic budgets and making them consistently with the number of business activities being undertaken in the districts. The committee also contends that the low collection of revenue has a direct effect on the delivery of social service to the community. In view of this, the committee urges the accounting authorities to be proactive and put in place robust revenue correction measures, such as opening up of commercial ventures and establishing revenue enhancement task forces without delay. Mr. Speaker, the committee also observes with concern the failure by the councils to avail accounting documents for audit to the auditors at the time of the audit, and always telling the committee that the said documents are now available for audit verification. In this regard, the committee urges the accounting authorities to desist from this, as it is a violation of the provision of the Public Finance Management Act No. 1 of 2018. Mr. Speaker, the contract management is also another matter of concern that needs to be addressed by the councils. The committee learned that most of the projects being implemented by the various contractors on behalf of the councils lack periodical monitoring and supervision, posing the risk to the quality of workmanship. In this regard, the committee urges the accounting authorities to enhance monitoring and evaluation mechanism in the councils. Mr. Speaker, the other matter of serious concern the committee confronted during the consideration of the report is with regard to delayed confirmation and overemployment of officers by the Local Government Service Commission. The committee observes that the delay to confirm officers is affecting the morale of the officers to put in their best when it comes to service delivery, while the overemployment of staff is a strain on the revenue of the affected local authorities, which could be channeled to the delivery of social services. Mr. Speaker, the committee therefore urges the Local Government Service Commission to expeditiously address confirmation and overemployment matters in councils without delay. Mr. Speaker, let me conclude by thanking you and the Office of the Clerk for the guidance, support you rendered to the committee during its deliberations. I further wish to thank all the stakeholders that appeared before the committee and the technical advice or support that was rendered to it by the permanent witnesses. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to appreciate the members of the committee for their cooperation and dedication to work, which made my role as the chairperson easy. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you. Does the seconder wish to speak now or later?
Now, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Chasefu.
Thank you once again, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to second the motion. First, I would like to thank the mover of the motion, who is our chairperson, Honorable Mulunda, for the able manner he has articulated some of the challenges that we have faced during our deliberations. In seconding the motion, Mr. Speaker, allow me to point at a few concerns that were observed during our deliberation. Chairperson, the first issue is I want to emphasize that we are aware the functions of the local government system is to provide effective municipal services to the communities. Now, weaknesses have been observed in the management of local authorities. Some of them highlighted by the chairperson, but allow me to point, number one, on the failure to maintain property. Chairperson, when you observe around all the 116 councils, you will note that they are failing to manage some of these properties which were constructed, some of them to give them some revenue, such as guest houses, such as markets, such as workshops. I'll give an example. When we went to Kasempa, Honorable Speaker, we noticed that a guest house that is earning money to Kasempa Council is cracked. When you are outside, you'd see those who are inside. And they are failing to maintain these properties. When we went to Kitwe, you will notice that a workshop that is supposed to be manufacturing blocks and other important things that the community need is not funded. It's in dilapidated state. So these are some of the observations that we have made. And yet, Mr. Speaker, these are properties, these are investments that are able to earn the council resources, meaning that the councils are not generating internal resources because of these challenges that we have. The issue is, or the question is it intentional that these councils are not maintaining these properties? So that is a weakness that we have observed. But you see, this is across all the councils. Even in houses that are supposed to be managed by the councils, they are failing to maintain them. Thereby, they cannot get rentals from the same. The other weakness is what our chairperson has highlighted, missing receipt books. Mr. Speaker, these are accountable documents. When we talk about missing receipt books, you are merely saying that monies are going out unaccounted for. And why are the local authorities not taking interest to ensure that all the monies due to the council are collected and accounted for properly? The councils are supposed to generate their own revenue. And I thank the government, we thank the government that they have continued to give local authorities, local government equalization fund and other grants to support them. But primarily, they are supposed to collect their own resources and provide services to the communities. But what we observe across most of the councils, you have missing receipt books. But is this going to be business as usual? Mr. Speaker, your committee is recommending that serious measures be taken. One of the examples is Chongwe Municipal Council. When you take a report for Chongwe Municipal Council, it is a disaster. Pure criminality. People taking advantage of public resources which are being personalized. And we made recommendation as a committee that let the law enforcement agencies move in, because what is happening in Nakonde, Chongwe, is also happening in Nakonde. When you go to Nakonde, Mr. Speaker, you will note that receipts, they are manipulating, instead of writing 40 kwachape, a truck that passes the border, they will remove, on the original receipt, they will put a 40 kwacha, but on the duplicate, they will remove and put a small amount which goes to the council. That is happening in Nakonde. But when you look at the Auditor General's report, you will note that this is happening across. lack of fear for public resources is happening in local authorities. They are supposed to generate money to help government. Government is supposed to supplement only. But this is not what is happening. The other issue I want to talk about is your committee visited the Republic of Tanzania to benchmark to see what our friends are doing. There in Tanzania, we noticed that our colleagues have got what they call Constituency Development Catalyst Fund. It's the same CDF, but they call it Catalyst Fund, just to activate what the government helps them. So, what we saw, themselves, we visited one of the districts where they've built a maternity wing. It was massively done by local contractors, just the same as we are doing under CDF in Zambia. But the quality is what we should also improve on. The other thing that we saw, Mr. Speaker, is that our friends have built markets using locally generated resources. Our friends in Tanzania, they have built a conference center, big conference center, built by local resources. What we are trying to talk about as a committee, if local authorities can generate and account for the local resources they generate, the people of Zambia will appreciate the reason why these local authorities are existing, because they'll be able to see what the local authorities are using the money that they are paying as taxes. So, accountability of locally generated resources is a weakness across all the local authorities in this republic. So as I second my able chair who has moved this motion, I wanted to augment the areas that we have seen as weaknesses. So your committee has observed lack of accountability and lack of fear for public resources in local authorities. With these remarks, I would like to second the mover of the motion, our chairperson, and I beg to sit. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Chinsali.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to make a few comments. As I begin to comment the mover of the motion as well as the seconder, it is vivid and clear that our councils need to improve in ensuring that the systems of internal control are working. Why do I say so, Mr. Speaker? If we have a system that is weak as regards internal controls, then we will be creating a lot of pressure on the Treasury. Because the Treasury, that is ZRA and the money that we are generating through ZRA and other sources, which goes to the Treasury, is used to finance the operations of the government, among which the councils are also financed. Now, the problem is that money, when it goes to the councils and there is some form of leakage in the councils through the systems that are weak pertaining to the internal controls, then we will be creating too much burden on the Minister of Finance. We will keep on putting pressure on the Minister of Finance to raise more money and finance the councils. When they receive the money is being either abused, or the systems of internal controls which are weak are making the councils not protect the resources. So it is very important that in all councils, the system of internal controls should be observed that they are working properly. Now, one weakness that we have, Mr. Speaker, one weakness that we have as a country is that through the Local Government Service Commission, you find that if one officer is underperforming in one council, he is just transferred to another council. What does that basically mean, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, that basically means that we are shifting a problem So if a person is underperforming in Chinsali, you transfer him to, say, Chadiza or Petauke, then it means that you have just transferred the problem from Chinsali to Petauke or Chadiza. So there is need for the local government, government service commission to come up with some form of performance management tool or system to evaluate the performance of officers, so that even when they are being given promotions, promotions should be based on merit, promotions should be based on the performance as per the assessment that has to be conducted using a performance management tool. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that I want to talk about is on making effective use of the council properties or government properties by the councils. Mr. Speaker, you will see that in most of these councils where we have guest houses, the people who are mandated to manage those council guest houses, they do not put the interests of the Zambian people or the government at heart. That's why you find that you have a council guest house in a particular council, but when you look at how competitive it is compared to the other guest houses that are in the same vicinity, the council guest houses are always like the worst in terms of competitiveness. Yet, when you look at the money that we spend to rehabilitate the councils and to finance the operations of the councils, we spend a lot of money. So, it basically means that the people who are managing those councils, they don't want to take the approach that should show that they love the government, they have the passion to protect the public resources. So it is very important that I think we continue encouraging our officers in the councils, and more like we continue raising where that look, these are government. The better we, if we can handle them better, then it means that we will be protecting the assets that belong to the government. If we generate more money, we are going to help the Minister of Finance and his ministry to generate money that will finance the operations of this country. Mr. Speaker, with these few remarks, I thank you.
The Honourable Member for Sinaz.
Most grateful, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I support the committee's report, I thought I should just point at some areas that I feel going forward our local authorities can improve on. Starting with, Mr. Speaker, is to the ministry itself, looking at the staffing levels. Because basically, Mr. Speaker, if you want proper job to be done in terms of levies collection or revenue collection by the local authorities, we have to look at the staffing levels in our local authorities. How far are we going with employment? Because indeed, in the year 2019, the staffing to 2021, up to 2022, actually, the staffing levels were very, very low. So you don't really expect too much from very few people. So we have, the ministry has to address that area, and also the other issue that I thought the report addresses, or the concerns that the ministry should take on board, is we have to look at what is happening from the way, from the time CDF was enhanced. You look at the revenues that our local authorities were collecting prior to the adjustment of CDF, you find the revenues have gone down. The local revenues have gone down. Why? Maybe the workers are they are overused. They have abandoned their core business and rushed to CDF. So those are the areas, Honorable Minister, that I feel you need to look at and see how best you can harmonize. Because indeed, I'll give you a typical example of Sinazongwe, Honorable Minister. Way back, even before I dreamed of being an MP, Sinazongwe was capable of raising its own revenue, pay the salaries. But the status quo, despite Sinazongwe being more industrialized now, the status quo seems to be not changing. The revenues are not all that impressive, but Sinazongwe has got a hive of activities where we can get a lot of revenues. Because for the people, Mr. Speaker, to continue paying the levies, they need to see the services on the ground. If they're not seeing, even the few that you were getting money from, they will shine. So indeed, we need to look at what is the core mandate of the local authorities. We are aware that now, again, there is this cash for work which is going to the local authorities. It is also a burden to the local authorities. It's a burden to the workers. So we need to look at how best can the local authorities not abandon their core mandate, which is of service delivered to the people. So there is also this devolution of power to the local authorities vis-a-vis their core mandate. So they shouldn't be abandoned. And we have to look, we really help, Honorable Minister, especially on the staffing levels. Staffing levels are very, very cardinal if we want to achieve what we want from our local authorities. With those few words, Madam Speaker, I do submit and support your report. Thank you so much.
The Honorable Member for Chiruvi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think my starting point would be the issue of the way we have framed our legal framework as well as the policy framework. I know that what is in this report, we are just trying to mop the leaking tap. Why we are mopping the leaking tap, Mr. Speaker, is that if you look at our constitution in part 9 of the constitution, the 2016 amended constitution, it has laid down pointing to the local government. It further emphasizes the local government system in Article 151 and 152. But you find that much of what we are tackling today, where we are touching fiscal, decentralization, where the local authorities are spending, we are not comparing also to what is in the law. For instance, Mr. Speaker, I also have in mind the Local Government Act number 2 of 2019. How much do we follow that? How much do we follow, for instance, at Section 31 of the Local Government Act? How much do we implement Section 24 of the Local Government Act? I have seen that the report has no distant or minute reference to legal responsiveness, policy responsiveness. It's just referring to figures, how figures were spent, how figures were supposed to be annexed. Mr. Speaker, the sources of funds for local government are centrally two. That is coming from the grants that are coming from the central government into the local government, as well as the self-generated funds. The committee did point out to that one of the countries they went to do the comparison with our country is Tanzania. And you find that they went to Dodoma and they placed the workmanship there and so forth. But if you look at the Local Government Act, the Act, the CDF Act there, which they have just put the word Qataris there, but the CDF Act there, which was, I think, implemented in 2009. The tabulation of how classification of these constituencies are done, and whether rural, the size of a constituency, and the poverty levels of a constituency, the area of the constituency is taken into consideration. But our report puts all the constituencies, all the districts on the same level as they are analyzing, as they are auditing them, overlooking the different challenges that different councils have. And looking at that, Mr. Speaker, I want to underscore the fact that whereas the local government system has been established for a longer period, there is need that mindset should be effected. There is need for paradigm shift. I know that a lot of us, maybe possibly a few council guest houses would look like modern buildings, but council workers, in as far as there's now beefed up manpower and improved professionalism, but the mindset is still the same. It's still unique. You find that anything associated with the council has to look bad. Anything associated with the council has to look for something else. This is the reason why we have got fiscal hemorrhage in the council, especially for locally produced or mobilized resources. You find that if the avenue of mobilizing resources locally has been left out to those who collect taxes in the market and the like, they pay themselves, and that's a reality. Some of them pay themselves and they negotiate for different levies and the like, and they pay themselves. That has to change. You find that the act reduces the capacity of the local authorities to effectively achieve certain things. For instance, Mr. Speaker, you find that many of the councils that seem to be performing well are those that are urban-driven and peri-urban-driven. What stops the local authorities in rural areas to have, for instance, council farms, like Kafue in Kaunda time, where they can generate? Why can't they take up the responsibility of buying tractors and address the opportunity to provide in the food chain? Because food is needed everywhere this time around. But you find that these councils in rural areas are not innovative enough to go in that line, and they have to say we do not have spaces for collection of revenue, and they have to depend on the central government for grants. Currently, the grants, as you may know, they are going also to councillors' stipends per se. And when you look at that, for instance, you take a local authority like Chirubi, which has got 24 councillors to pay from the same, grant. It means that much of the grant would go towards there if they are not innovative enough to generate funds. Mr. Speaker, I also want to emphasize that the issue for equity in these councils is very important. Equity will take on board what they went to benchmark: issues of population, issues of poverty, and issues of size. Mr. Speaker, I will not do justice if, for instance, I do not talk about these two funds, which is the Constituency Development Fund as well as the Equalization Fund. When you look at the implementation of the Constituency Development Fund, of which much of the audits have been done there, though I heard some of the people were saying that we have not received any funding for what, but we have heard in this report there are a lot of projects that have been completed in 2020. I don't know where that funding was coming from. The report indicates that most of the projects were completed in 2020 using the 1.6 CDF fund. Looking at the issues that I seem to be pointing out to Mr. Speaker, the CDF, there is a mismatch between soft policy and the hard policy. You find that there are these presidential, pronouncements that do not resonate well with the creature of the law, which is the WDC, is the product list. And you find that at that point there is a bit of clashing. Now you can say question, but that's a reality. There is a bit of clashing, where you find that what is coming from the community and what is coming from presidential directives is clashing. And as a result, you find that those council workers, they will struggle between the presidential directive and what is coming from the community, which they are seeing every day. And that, in the long run, happens to be a problem in terms of balancing up. So the CDF, there's a lot of visitation.
Order, your time is up, Honorable Member. The Honorable Member for Zambezi East.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity to debate the report of your committee on local government accounts, on the report of the Auditor General on the accounts of local authorities for the financial year ended, I think it's 31st December 2022. Mr. Speaker, a snap check on the report reveals that local authorities still have problems of controls. But these are actually historical. They have been there from time immemorial, probably because of the way the local authorities are configured. And me coming from a finance background, I begin to think that part of the systems that improve institutions is corporate governance. In the case of local authorities, the corporate governance is actually provided by the council, the elected council. Those are the people who are supposed to provide the corporate governance required for local authorities. But it appears there's a disconnect between the work that these elected councillors do to supplement what those that are employed to do the administrative work in the councils. You find that most of the resolutions, the work...
Honorable Member, as the time is 12:55 hours, I suspend business for a lunch break. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for still being with us on Parliament Television. It's a lovely afternoon. Business has been suspended for lunch break until 14:30, and at the time business was suspended, the House was considering a report. This was moved by Mr. Mulunda, who is a Siavonga Member of Parliament. Indeed, he is the chairperson of the local government accounts, urging the House to adopt the report of the Committee on Local Government Accounts on the report of the Auditor General on the accounts of local authorities for the financial year ended 31st December 2022. For the third session of the 13th National Assembly, the document was laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 1st August 2024, and at the time business was suspended. It was Zambezi East Member of Parliament, Mr. Brian Kambita, who was on the floor of the House debating. So when business resumes at 14:30 later in the afternoon, you continue debating. Matimba, let's quickly look at what else has been considered on the floor of the House today.
Yes, President, when business resumed at 09 hours, some announcements were made. Madam Speaker did recognize the presence in the public gallery of pupils and teachers from Riverside Secondary School in Chikankata District, Southern Province, and pupils and teachers from Izukanji School in Chilanga District. Madam Speaker, on behalf of the National Assembly of Zambia, warmly welcomed the visitors to the National Assembly.
The other announcement that Madam Speaker made was to inform the House that His Excellency Mr. Evariste Ndiyishimiye, the President of the Republic of Burundi, who addressed the House today. In addressing the House, His Excellency the President used the French language, of which he ended up using English, and arrangements were made to translate the French into English. And His Excellency did address Parliament earlier in the day, and quite a number of issues were raised in his address. He did talk about, he expressed gratitude for the warm reception that the Zambian people accorded him and his entourage when he arrived here in Zambia, and also highlighted that Zambia and Burundi are linked by culture and geographical through Lake Tanganyika, and also spoke about the parliamentary diplomacy, which is very, very important, hence him coming here to address members of parliament, and also highlighted the role that the first Republican president, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, played during the independence struggle of Burundi. Matimba.
Yes, President, and in the other announcement, Madam Speaker acquainted the House with the presence in the Speaker's Gallery of the Honorable Ministers and Senior Government Officials from the Republic of Burundi, and also other senior government officials from the Republic of Burundi and staff from the Embassy of Burundi in Zambia, the Honorable Ministers, the Ambassador and senior government officials, part of His Excellency Mr. Evariste Ndayishimiye, President of the Republic of Burundi's delegation to Zambia. And so, Madam Speaker, on behalf of the National Assembly of Zambia, warmly received the distinguished guests to the National Assembly.
The other announcement that Madam Speaker made was to inform the House that the Ministry of Tourism, in partnership with the Zambia Parliamentary Caucus on Environment and Climate Change, has organized an induction seminar for members of Parliament who were gazetted as honorary wildlife police officers. The seminar will take place on Saturday, which is tomorrow, 3rd August 2024, from 08:30 hours to 13 hours at the Lusaka National Park in Lusaka. The seminar has been organized to train honorable members on the roles and responsibilities of the HWPOs, and she was informed that the ministry has organized the seminar in recognition of the critical role that honorable members play as community leaders in addressing the challenge of human-wildlife conflict, which has affected the country in the recent past.
And so, Madam Speaker did say that all gazetted honorable members of Parliament are invited to attend the seminar. However, due to increased interest from members, the invitation is also being extended to non-gazetted members of Parliament on condition that they are gazetted as soon as the seminar. A circular with names of Parliament to attend the induction has been issued. Madam Speaker also did say that all honorable members participating in the seminar are required to be seated at the venue by 09 hours in readiness for the official opening by the Right Honorable Madam Speaker.
After those announcements, the House did consider Her Honor the Vice President's question time. 45 minutes allocated to members of Parliament to ask questions without notice, and at 9:45 hours, business was suspended to await the arrival of the President of Burundi, His Excellency Mr. Evariste Ndayishimiye, President of the Republic of Burundi, of which he did address Parliament.
After that, the House went on to consider 2 questions for oral answer under Standing Order 82, and question number 414 came from Shiwangandu, Member of Parliament, Mr. Stephen Kampyongo. He directed this question to the Minister of Health. He wanted to find out whether the medicines that were intercepted by the police in the Copper Belt province en route to the Democratic Republic of Congo, as reported in the News Diggers newspaper of 31st July 2024, belong to the government. And the minister did say that this is based on the GRZ laboring on the as to whether to patch numbers which are unique. And in part B of the question, he wanted to find out if so where the medicines came from, and the minister did say that the ministry and law enforcement are yet to ascertain where the medicines came from. In part C of the question, he wanted to find out what measures are being taken to curb the pilferage of medicines from government health facilities. And the minister did say that enhancing security of medicines and medical supplies, and also enhancing community engagement, and also amplifying whistle-blowing activities.
The report, which is under consideration at the time business was suspended for the lunch break, is moved by Mr. Mulunda, who is a Siavonga Member of Parliament, is chairperson of the Committee on Local Government Accounts, urging the House to adopt the report of the Committee on Local Government Accounts on the report of the Auditor General on the accounts of local authorities for the financial year ended 31st December 2022 for the 3rd session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 1st August 2024. And we've seen a Chinsali Member of Parliament debating, and it's also worth mentioning that this motion was seconded by Chasefu Member of Parliament, Mr. Mishek Nyambosi, and Mr. Kafue has also debated. Senazongwe, Member of Parliament, Mr. Gift Sialubalo also debated, and at the time business was suspended. it was Zambezi East Member of Parliament, Mr. Brian Kambita, who was on the floor of the House. So, Matimba, basically that's the business so far, and we still have a motion of thanks.
Yes, President, and this motion is expected to be moved by Sesheke Member of Parliament, Mr. Romeo Kangombe, urging the House to adopt the report of the Committee on Energy, Water Development and Tourism on the special audit report of the Auditor General on the procurement and management of petroleum products from 1st January 2019 to 31st December 2022 for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 1st August 2024.
The last motion that is expected is thanks His Excellency Mr. Evariste Ndayishimiye's special address that this House places on record. It's thanks to His Excellency Mr. Evariste Ndayishimiye, President of the Republic of Burundi, on the occasion of his special address to the House, and also have the Kazungula Bridge Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2024 coming up at committee stage.
And so just now we go on a lunch break. Remember, business of the House resumes at 14:30 hours. Keep watching Parliament Television. Good afternoon.
La Liga pa top star imwe.